What's up, everybody, and welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything in the world of video games. That's right, you don't need to go anywhere else. We have a show loaded, absolutely loaded for you with gaming content and a bonus as we talk about our friends at Come to House Toronto with their charity stream on April 2nd for 12 hours starting at noon Eastern. You can find us over on twitch.tv and look for Covenant House Main Mission. That's right, mainmission.ca. You can go there right now, support a great cause, or swing by and support us on April 2nd starting at noon. Now, what's coming up on today's show? Here it is. It's the rundown.
But there's so many different pop culture references. Whether the guy says, hasta la vista, or I'll be back, or there's just a bunch. There's probably dozens of those written in. And those were, again, I like it, but...
Scott, you and I are checking out a point-and-click adventure game, something I'm looking forward to. This is up my wheelhouse, dude. I love the point-and-click adventure genre, so this is kind of a throwback for me. And something a little bit different for you. We're checking out Syberia, The World Before.
I think I'm still on the first journey. It's honestly a little bit confusing with the way this game kind of works, so I'm not even sure what chapter I'm on. But the game kind of starts off pretty strong. You wake up to your children being killed, massacred, and your husband being captured. So from there...
It's the ultimate Easter egg, a streaming campaign like no other, a mission with the goal to change lives in real life. I challenge you to join me on the Main Mission, a charity stream campaign to raise funds for Covenant House. From March 7th to April 1st, we welcome everyone to join this fundraising mission to benefit youth who are homeless, trafficked, or at risk. The campaign will feature prizes, giveaways, and big surprises. And on April 2nd, we join forces with some of the biggest content creators and gamers to raise maximum funds. Help us change the game. Can we count you in? Told you we were in for a good show, so let's get going as Steve and Scot kick things off in Shadow Warrior 3.
Well, let's stick to the shadows. Or not. A bit more of a warrior game this one is. We're here with Shadow Warrior 3, and, well... let me try and catch you up. If you're not familiar with the Shadow Warriors series, they're very not serious. It has this kind of laugh about every little aspect. It's very self-aware. And while there's not much shadow, it's just about 100% just grueling combat. So stealth is out the window. That is not what this game is about. You're going to go through, crush a lot more demons, and follow this giant Asian dragon. What did you think about the combat? Because that's the main focus here.
Very much, I was going to say Doom. Because even though it's Shadow Warrior, and I was expecting a bit more sword action, it is fun. It is a really, really lot of fun. I do like the graphic style, but it wasn't perfect. I found it wasn't as polished as I would liked it to be. I found some bits were glitchy. I had an issue where I was changing the weapon, and when I come out from it, I had no weapon in my hand, and it kind of froze like that.
I had a few of those issues as well, so I'm not quite sure if there's a lot of updates coming in, maybe some patches that'll fix these issues, but they weren't necessarily game breaking. I had the very similar experience where I go in and out of the pause menu, and the entire game is frozen. That was a little frustrating, but I was able to unstick it just by pausing a bunch of times. I did have an issue with the final boss fight. Now, I'm not really going to get into spoilers here. It's not much of a surprise. You shoot this one to death, but it had this kind of motion to it where it jumps up in the air, and when it came back down, it would land on what looks like an invisible plateau above me. I wasn't able to shoot any of the weak points. I couldn't advance the fight at all. It just kind of stood there, laughing at me. Luckily for myself, it is a Doom light, is what I would call it. Instead of roguelite, it's a Doom light. You're moving around at light speed. You have a little bit of a dash. You have a double jump. You have this melee weapon. That's a little bit new, but the different arsenal of weapons just keep getting stronger and stronger. more gruesome as time goes on, and you're crushing hundreds of enemies. Literally hundreds of enemies. You can acquire some of these upgrade tokens, and that'll build your character up, give you a little bit more survivability, or boost up your weapons. So it gives you a little bit to work on in the long run, but in the short term, you're just a death machine. I really like that kind of a shooter, and this was almost made for me in that respect. Now, the visuals, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it does look a little bit dated. It sort of gives me that Borderlands feeling, where it's not quite a comic book, but it's just kind of low res, but really bright look to the environment, to the enemies. So there's a little bit lacking in that regard. But the audio has very good voice acting. I enjoy the voice acting, and I think they work really well. Different personalities expressed, but man, was I so tired of all those one-liners. It was so awful. Eventually, you're hearing the same kind of things over and over again. That gets really annoying, but it was clever in some regards. There's a lot of
It breaks it up a little bit.
Yeah, so, it knows it's not serious. It's being very not serious, and I like that, because it would have been awkward if it kind of broke that halfway through. But there's so many different pop culture references. Whether the guy says, hasta la vista, or I'll be back, or there's just a bunch. There's probably dozens of those written in. And those were, again, I like it, but it gets a little repetitive.
I did like the character of Lo Wang. I found him quite comical, does what he wants to do, and just wants to blast things up. And like you said, you do go to the areas, or arenas, sorry. And then what you do is you start off with a basic horde of enemies, you just blast away, and then when you move to the next one, you get the same one again, but they just give you a different enemy with a higher ability or harder to shoot. And then they just keep adding and adding. So as you progress through, they just keep adding an extra horde of enemies. But I do like the way they did split it up in some scenes where you actually have to precisionally jump between different platforms. Right across the walls, and even use your grapple hook to swing to certain areas. But it's not a time challenge, but you've got limited time to jump from platform to platform before they either disintegrate or fall. Mm-hmm. And if you mess it up, then you have to start that bit again. And even when you get to you think you got to the end, they'll add an extra bit onto it. And if you die there, then you have to start back at that beginning again. So
sometimes
I did find that
frustrating. Quite long. Yeah. Well, there's the one, that little ice piece that you follow down what seems to be the world's longest mountain. That went on a little bit long, but it's funny because it's a very Doom similar kind of experience. In Doom Eternal, there's a lot of this kind of platforming, using your dash, your double jump to cross big open spaces. So it's interesting how they took a little bit here and a little bit there off of Doom and what it's done successfully, and they've made it kind of their own thing, not taking it seriously, having this kind of wacky story, lots of magic, witchcraft going on. You're fighting the different yokai, demons, and it has its own identity, but it fits into that little shooter subgenre that I really, really enjoy. Thank you for Doom for putting that one in my head. If you're going to score this one up, what do you think this one deserves?
Well, I did have a lot of fun. I did complete it in about 11 hours, but I wasn't on the hard mode, I was on the medium. And I didn't like the way that when I completed it, that I couldn't go back and replay the levels.
Yeah.
And for that, I'm giving this one a 7. How about you?
Okay, I think that's fair. That little bit of, you almost have to start a new game plus, but it's not worked into the game that way. That's a little frustrating. But when it comes to the meat and potatoes of this game, the real combat, the crushing brutality, those execution kills, it has all the right pieces that I really enjoy from that specific subgenre of shooter. We'll call it a Doom-lite. I really appreciated the aspects it brings, and it has enough of a personality to stand on its own. I'm not such a fan of that traversal kind of platforming, but it is useful to break up the game otherwise, and to reach that 9-hour game time. I think that's where I was about on hard mode. So there's not a huge amount of game here, but what it is, it does really well. I really appreciate this game. I'm there with a 7.5. There's a little bit of some glitching, some bugging, but everything else just stands well on its own. Shadow Warrior 3 is a brutal Doom-like shooter with a unique sense of humor. It is held back by bugs and glitches.
And I didn't think this asshole had one. Time to break it.
We've all had that one particular villain. The one you love to hate. What's ITG's favorite villain? Stick around all episode as each of us break it down.
My favorite video game villain is coming from the Sonic the Hedgehog universe. Yep, I'm talking about Dr. Robotnik. Honestly, this was one of the cooler bosses I played in all the Sonic games I ever owned and played as a kid. It kind of just brings me back looking at some of these boss battles. They were always so creative in the way you had to defeat him. He always had all this technology that he used, and Sonic just had to use his speed and some of his other abilities to get the best of him. And these were some of the harder boss battles, especially when I was playing this game on my Sega Game Gear, my Sega Genesis. Honestly, this just kind of brings me back, and he is one of my favorite video game villains. This one was too interesting not to share with you guys. I came across an article about a leaked photo of a portable GameCube back in 2007 that kind of set the internet ablaze. Well, Twitter user Ginger of Oz has made this a reality because that was just a leaked photo. There was nothing to it. Obviously, we never saw a GameCube portable version handheld. Well, Ginger of Oz on Twitter has posted a video of the fine work and craftsmanship that he's put into creating this portable GameCube a la Nintendo DS Lite. So we're kind of getting a cool look at what he's created here. There's been some 3D printed parts, obviously. The disc slot on the front is actually just for show, but he's running everything through a Wii motherboard through the entire thing. So you're essentially getting kind of a portable Wii / GameCube design with the GameCube controller design for the handheld. And I just thought this was kind of too cool not to share with you guys. I mean, this isn't something that we're ever going to be able to get our hands on. It's pretty impressive to see someone kind of creating something like this. It's very creative, but it's cool to see this thing kind of come to life. Actually, he does show in the short little video on Twitter of the games he's playing. He's playing Wind Waker, he's playing Mario Kart Double Dash, even Metroid Prime he's jumping into. So we are missing a few of the GameCube things like the intro screen and some of that stuff. But honestly, this was just too cool. This is something I definitely would want to get my hands on if they sold, especially just for the nostalgia sake. I was a huge GameCube fan, and honestly, hats off to you, Ginger of Oz. This one was really cool.
Alright, so Elden Ring has finally hit some staggering numbers within only 3 weeks. We're talking 12 million copies sold worldwide and over 1 million copies sold in Japan. These are fantastic, humongous numbers to see from Software. These guys, you know, their biggest title was Dark Souls 3. They sold over 10 million copies of that game. And yes, that is a very, that's a milestone. But to sell over that by 2 million within 3 weeks of your game's launch, that is incredible. And what's even more incredible is that with this news, they are going to expand the universe of Elden Ring even more. Hopefully that means we'll get some graphic novels, maybe some actual fictional books, like some 300-page books. Maybe we'll get J.R. Martin to actually write us an Elden Ring book. It doesn't seem plausible, but I would love to see that, of course. But I can't just gawk about Elden Ring enough. 12 million copies sold. This game is booming. I cannot personally stop playing it. I'm over 100 hours in and still have so much to uncover from this map. This game is incredible and has made, has set a milestone for so many games. I am beyond excited for From Software, and I cannot wait to see what things we get in the future. Maybe some board games. That would be great too. I've seen so many video game iterations of board games, and even most recently, Horizon Forbidden West, that got a board game and it looks fantastic. So guys, let me know what you guys think. Are you playing Elden Ring? Is this a game that you've been on the fence about because of its difficulty? Or are you excited about future endeavors with the franchise of Elden Ring? Please let me know at insidethegame.ca or on our Discord.
Microsoft's Flight Simulator came out on August the 18th, 2020, but it was only for PC only. And if you bought the physical copy, it came in a staggering 10 discs, which gave you the simulator code and the virtual world it's set in, which was around 90 gigabytes, with the optional online stream content and an optional third-party files. Then a year later, it became an Xbox Series X and an Xbox Series S exclusive, but was unplayable for the Xbox One and a low-end PC, due to the high demand the game requires to run smoothly. Well, a couple of weeks ago, it's now been possible that we can all reach for the skies, thanks to an upgrade of the xCloud streaming service, as it's powered by the Xbox Series X hardware, which gives players an identical experience to full-fat PC versions. So if you're thinking about checking out Microsoft's Flight Simulator on your Xbox One or low-end PC using the xCloud streaming service, you have to make sure that you've got the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription service active, as well as that you've got at least 10 megabytes of internet speed for this game to run properly.
We've all had that one magical boss fight that just never escapes us. And for me, if you know, I'm a big Metal Gear Solid fan. And Metal Gear Solid 3 being my favorite of all, has to go for the best villain, the End. He's an old sniper that's over 100 years old, and if you played the game and maybe walked away from that boss fight like I did, you return to him dying of old age.
Drop your weapon.
That's right, I didn't even fight him. I literally walked away, turned the game back on, and he dies. That is only done because of Kojima. Him and his magical team over there at the time made one of the most memorable games for me and a magical moment in villains. The End is my ultimate favorite villain. Guten Tag, Scott. We're off to Vaughan. Scott, you and I are checking out a point-and-click adventure game, something I'm looking forward to. This is up my wheelhouse, dude. I love the point-and-click adventure genre, so this is kind of a throwback for me, and something a little bit different for you. We're checking out Syberia, The World Before. For all of us catching up in the world of what's going on with Kate Walker, she is located right now in a prison, gets out of that prison, Scott, and I'm just giving you a high level here of what's going on, and from there comes across a stolen painting of a particular woman that looks very similar to herself. With nothing left to kind of hold on to, she sets out on this journey and kind of keeps her going to find out just exactly who this woman is. And that's kind of the premise behind the story of the game. And it was enough to kind of hook me, dude. Some of the characters we've met and intertwined with right from the get-go. This Dana woman at the very beginning of the game, because you're transported back in 1937 in Vaughan.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest part for me, actually, is the way they jump around the different timeline and the way... Yeah. Well, it's centered in like an alternate reality from ours. So there's a lot of things that are very similar, but they've changed a lot of the names. Like the Brown Shadow, for example, is... Well, it's a certain fascist government that we defeated about 80 years ago.
Yeah, so they play off of that, right? So the Brown Shadow has stolen a lot of this artwork and stuff like that, and we stumbled as Kate Walker stumbled across this painting that looks like her, and from there it kind of sets out on her journey from there. And Scott, what I thought was unique is a lot of times now point and click adventure games are really getting into that mouse and keyboard aspect. Here, dude, everything's controlled by the mouse alone, and that is it, right? My biggest problem though, Scott, if you're not that familiar with the game itself or these characters, there's not a lot to catch you up into the realm of Kate Walker and where she was before, because I haven't played the other ones. I've always kind of seen them from the outside looking in and go, man, this is really cool. I've always been playing on the Broken Sword series, so big point and click adventure game series over there, played all of those. Coming into this one, something I've always kind of kept my eye on, and seeing how beautiful this game looked and Kate's story, and I wanted to be kind of enthralled into her world. I had no way to catch up of what was going on from previous titles. Dude, this is the 4th in the series.
Oh, wow.
So like, what happened to everybody else, or what happened to some of these characters? We meet some of this other, she has a heart of an automaton, and I was like, who's this? Because I had no idea, right? So here I am, I'm now researching other previous games because I don't have a clue what's going on. And that's one of the biggest struggles for me, is to figure out who Kate is as a person from her previous titles, so I can get caught up, because they have throwbacks and references to other games that for, you know, longtime fans I think is going to be really nice, but for new people like ourselves, Scott, we're a little just confused. How did you feel about the game?
It was very hard to get invested in the characters. For a little while. Some things happen very early on, and you go, okay, I understand the motivation, why we're going on this kind of adventure. Nobody wants to live and work in a salt mine forever, so that made sense. But it enters this realm of mystery right off the start, and that's definitely... I almost consider this like a detective game in the way that LA Noire is. Sure. But it's just minus all the gunfights that LA Noire really didn't need. So they've improved that formula a little bit. But the world is what I get pulled into. Again, I have to go back to that, because the technology around, the kind of different automatons, you get on the bus, the train, and there's a little robot driving it. Really cool. But that heart that you carry around and you put into the new automaton, the way you interact with the different technology bits. And, you know, there's a puzzle element to it always. You're, you know, assembling a code or whatever that opens up a new slot in it. There's a device in there. You know, there's all sorts of little step-by-step processes to open it up. And it gives me that Bioshock kind of technology level. Or almost, I think I said this to you earlier, almost like a Dishonored feel, where it's like not an advanced technology in all ways, but it's doing something that we just haven't done in the real world.
It had this Dunwall effect on it, right? With the architecture of the buildings and the structure and the layout of the land and stuff like that. Dude, I was hooked. Like, I was instantly hooked into the world, even though I was definitely a little confused as to what was going on. Why is Kate in this salt mine with Katusha, and what are they doing here, and how'd they get there is my biggest question, right? Like, why are they there? You get this letter and you figure out that you've run away, but you don't know why. And it's kind of like, man, if I had a little bit more backstory, maybe I'd have more compassion as to why I'm here and why I'm struggling to you know, live each day and what's going on to push myself forward. But as in every other point and click adventure game, it is riddled with puzzles and stuff like that. And I'm stuck. I got stuck on a couple here or there, but I was able to figure them out, push forward.
Dude, that feels good.
It does feel good, right? It's one of those challenges as they're definitely not related, but you know, it's kind of like defeating a boss in Elden Ring. When you achieve that, it's like, oh, sweet, you're on the next one, right?
Yeah, I can finally move through the game.
Well, exactly. So I think Kate is played really well. I think her voice acting was awesome. I thought the world is fantastic. Dude, the music, the audio behind the game, the score was incredible.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of it. Dude, this game I thought was fantastic.
Very early on, where you're speaking to these scientists, and I just could not figure out how to advance the conversation. It was
really
eventually I understood it, and I'll give a hint because it stuck me. There is something on the table that you have to examine, and the circle to indicate that just wasn't there. So
it wasn't highlighted, right?
Yeah, it just, there was no way for me to interact with that object. Eventually I reloaded it and it did work, so it wasn't a major hold up, but that was just one little issue.
Scott, I think we had a good time, a bit of a puzzling time in the world of Syberia, the world before. What do you score in this one?
I was really excited about this one when I got in. It had a bit of a slow start for me, but as you've pointed out, it's because I'm lacking a lot of the backstory, so that makes a lot of sense. But I really, really loved this world. I really liked the puzzle building parts of it, and I was eventually drawn through the story. I was hooked and pulled in. So I think that's just about anything you could hope for from a point-and-click game, and it was kind of a quicker pace than I was expecting. I really think this is a good one. I'm there with a 7.5. It didn't get me in some aspects, but mostly I'm really a fan.
Oh, that's cool. Dude, I'm higher than you. I'm a big point-and-click adventure fan. For me, I think anybody who's a fan of this genre needs to play this game. I think it's right up there with one of the best around. This is an awesome experience. It had to hook me right from the beginning for the story. Puts me there with an 8.5.
Syberia, The World Before is an engaging adventure set in a beautiful parallel reality. A great story is the focus with this one.
Horizon Forbidden West is a truly amazing and stunning game, but whether you're doing the main missions or the side quests, you will come across some boss machines you'll have to defeat before you can carry on with your story. One of my favourite boss fights was on the mission The Sea of Sands, set in Las Vegas against the Tide Ripper. Make sure you move around as much as possible, as the Tide Ripper will try and lock you down using its water blast and other attacks, so it can leap in for huge damage. So getting to higher ground such as the pedestals can help you to defeat it. The Tide Ripper weakness is frost and shock attacks, and for its strengths is purge water and fire. There's nothing more satisfying than taking down the Tide Ripper, then going over and then collecting all the loot after.
Aloy! Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! You did it!
What's up, everybody? I'm playing Puzzle Quest 3 over on my mobile device. That's right, we're talking about Mobile Mention. In Puzzle Quest 3, you play as a hero, going through a story into knighthood, and then from there carrying on. You're in the dungeons, battling monsters, creatures, spiders, trolls, you name it, they're all there. I even battled a dragon. That was kind of cool. It's a simple match 3 game. We play in a horizontal format, which is a little bit different than our usual vertical format. They are implementing the change of diagonal use with your tiles, which kind of leads into some pretty cool combos you can pull off. The ability to swap on an angle now instead of just up and down or left or right makes a pretty big impact on the overall game experience. The biggest drawback with the game is the RPG element. Yeah, you're there to upgrade your stats, which is fantastic, but in a lot of RPG games, you want to see your new gear on your hero, and that's where this game really lacks, because that doesn't happen. So that's unfortunate. As you keep progressing, you get more and more gear. You're upgrading all your gear. This is pretty cool. I'm having a great time, but none of that gear seems to matter at the end of the day because I don't see it on my hero. That's my biggest complaint. Overall, though, I'm having a decent time. There's a lot under the hood, a lot to grind. It'll definitely keep you going for a long time. This has been a ton of fun, but I wish they really just allow me to customize my hero. Check out Puzzle Quest 3.
One of the best villains in all of video gaming ever, Shalashaska, aka Adam, aka Revolver Ocelot. One of the most compelling characters in the Metal Gear Solid series. He appears in a lot of the different entries in a bunch of different roles, making him one of the best triple agents there ever were. He services just about every side in a conflict to his advantage. And that has led him to advise the Snake from Metal Gear Solid 5. He's a sworn enemy of the Solid Snake we all love. He's been a part of the family in a certain way. I don't want to go into any spoilers here, but, well, it requires 100 hours to understand at least. Shalashaska is one of the best enemies you ever will fight in a video game. Just look at his style. He is memorable, if nothing else, and absolutely one of my favorite villains of all time.
Alright, so quite often in Fallout 76, there's a daily challenge for collecting a holotape. And if you're like me, you might not always remember where you collected all those holotapes. Or if you're a beginner, maybe that holotape that you remember is all the way at the other side of the map. So in this video, I'm going to show you where there's a 100% guarantee spawn for holotapes. So if you look at the middle southern part of the map, Foundation, this is a free place to fast travel for everybody. If you get this place unlocked, you just simply need to walk up to Paige's headquarters. Once you've entered the building, you simply just walk down the ramp and there are 3 holotapes all within this area, and they are a guarantee spawn because when you walk in this area, it's loading into your own instance. So there you have it, guys. That's the easiest and quickest place to get a holotape that is a 100% guarantee spawn every time.
Nate, it's a weird one. It's Weird West. Nate, you and I jumped into early access with our first impressions of Weird West. This is definitely a weird title. Right now, I'm sitting around the 4-hour mark. We're allowed to talk about chapters 1, or what they call journeys. Journeys 1 and journeys 2. How many journeys did you get into? How many hours are you in?
Well, I'm roughly 10 hours in, and I think I'm still on the first journey. It's honestly a little bit confusing with the way this game kind of works, so I'm not even sure what chapter I'm on. But the game kind of starts off pretty strong. You wake up to your children being killed, massacred, and your husband being captured. So from there, you are, I guess, a retired bounty hunter, so you whip out the old irons and go on a mission to find your husband. And that's where this game takes off, man. It has so much freedom within it. You go to your first town, Grackle, and talk to some locals around just to maybe get some information about your husband. But from there, you really are given freedom to go wherever you want, which is, I think, the biggest highlight about this game.
The freedom and the choice, right? It really comes down to some of the dialogue choices, too. You can literally kill every single person in this game, main characters aside, like even them you can
you can kill everyone, man. Main characters too.
Which is pretty cool, right? The fact that you can take out everybody and still continue the story, the search for your husband, is kind of a unique thing that doesn't happen very often in games at all. For me, early access to the 4-hour where I'm sitting at right now, I've had a decent time. A little confused. It definitely is. It goes with the title. Weird. There's no doubt about it. And I'm sitting in with some of these creatures. And I'm like, what is going on here? And I don't want to give away too many spoilers here, Nate. But all in all, like, you know what? I'm not overly pumped about the game, but I'm not really that disappointed either. I'm kind of in the middle, right? I'm lukewarm, I guess I would say. Yeah. So, mechanics, there's all kinds of loot. My biggest problem is, dude, there's so much loot, but I have no ammo. Like, I'm constantly running out of ammo and getting slaughtered by the amount of enemies that come running at you with bags on their head. That drives me absolutely nuts. Dude, it's like the cheapest way to get out of creating unique AI guys or characters to fight against is just you put a mask on. The mask, okay, I'd rather really do with the mask, and it's like a paper bag.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Man, I was just like, this isn't cool. Everybody's running around with the paper bag on, and you're in the Weird West. I get it, but do something else. It's Weird West, right? You have cool creatures in here, things you're fighting with, things you actually side with, which is really unique and stuff. And then some of these powers. Nate, you got into some of the powers.
Yeah, and I honestly found them a little underwhelming. You have a couple different skill trees that you can unlock, and most of your abilities are sort of tied to each weapon. And I found them just, like I said, underwhelming. I was using them in combat, and the combat's just okay. It's all in real time, and you have this dodge ability that is really what you need to focus on using, and then hiding behind cover. And I guess, one thing that's cool too is that the environment is quite user-friendly. There are all sorts of things, explosive barrels, poison barrels, bushes to set on fire, and, all of this to use to kill your enemy, which is fine, but I don't know, it just didn't really just hook me like I was hoping. The stealth is pretty boring. All you do is sneak up behind a character and press right trigger. I'm using a controller. You're using mouse and keyboard. So you just go up behind them, knock them out, and then you try to hide their body. Hiding their bodies, man, who knows? You could hide up behind a fence, completely hidden, or in a bush, and they'll still get discovered. But these AI at the same time, you'll knock out one guy right beside somebody else, and they won't even notice, but yet they'll notice a guy 30 feet away and hidden in a bush that's supposed to hide things. So it's just, all in all, man, it's too frustrating in my opinion. Like, the stealth is boring, the combat's okay, and I mean, I like the idea of the freedom within this game, but to get from point A to point B, I'm just not that impressed.
Which is unfortunate. I didn't have any issues with the stealth when I hid them within the world, within the bushes, right? An eyeball will come up with a line through it to let you know that you're hidden, as well as whoever you've tossed in that bush is hidden as well. So I didn't run into any of those issues at all. I did sneak up beside somebody on a chair, and that mechanic dude trying to stealth them out, like they just popped up. I was just like, that's weird. And somebody on the bed, I wanted to take out on the bed, they just popped up too. I was like, oh man. There's just certain little polished things that kind of need to be tweaked a little bit, right?
And graphically, it's very mediocre. I mean, they chose this sort of cell shading kind of graphic style, which I like that from Borderlands, but in this game, you're just looking at a very bland character 90% of the time.
It's I didn't mind the art style, the character, the self, but like their faces are awful. That's the problem when it comes down to. I appreciate the comic book. I love comic book art styles, especially within video games. I think it really works well, but the face itself was just like a wash for me. And I was like, man, you had everything going for that art style that I was appreciated of until you kind of get a little bit into that face. Dude, let's talk about the camera angles, because this can really get to you sometimes. It's got this, top down kind of aspect to it, but you can zoom right in. And sorry, you can't zoom right in because it's to the point, Nate, that you're so close to this third person perspective that you feel like the camera has just been cut off at your forehead, like right above your eyebrows, right? I'm just like, I just want to be able to see
just a little higher, or a little higher, like a little
right?
lower to see more forward. It's just, the camera angles are awful, man. You're trying to stealth through buildings. You'll open a door, walk in, and then for some reason the wall is still fully opaque in front of you. You can't see what you're doing, so you have to walk in 10 feet, then get noticed by the guy that you didn't see, unless you use that potion or whatever that allows you to see enemies through walls. But it's like, it's just the cameras, man. I don't know, like, did they just not really put that much time into actually playing their game to notice how frustrating it was trying to stealth through 90% of the game?
It is really unfortunate. I do love the fact that dialogue seems to matter here. I think that has some weight and some consequences to it. I think that's one of the standout highlights, is the dialogue options that allow you to, it's really pretty early on, but you have this ability to go, you talk to these people at the farm. You're there to basically take the farm. Dude, I just chose not to, right? I left the farm, I left them alone, and went a different route to kind of go about my objective. I thought that was really cool. Dude, I love games that do that, and when they do it well. And I think Weird West really takes that into account and hammers that home and does such a good job of, you don't have to do certain things if you don't want to, and it has consequences and weights to it, right? You can choose to free some of these people, and then they're friends for life and that sort of thing. There's a lot of cool aspects to it, but there's a lot of misses too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think just the gameplay and the cumbersome of trying to loot bodies while there's books and doors, everything's all around you. It's just, it really just takes away from what's great about this game, man. So all in all, first impressions, not very impressed, man. Not very impressed. What about you?
Me, I'm lukewarm on the game, right? That's what I said. It had some highs, but it has a lot of lows for me. It is on all consoles. It's on PC. It's coming to Game Pass. So a lot of people will be able to jump in and kind of test it out for themselves. So keep that in the back of your mind. If you want to take a look at the game, if you have Game Pass, I think that's a good move for you and a good opportunity for you to, you know, at least jump into the world of Weird West and see for yourself, you know, how does these choices and these mechanics work for you? And do they or don't they click? And a lot of it honestly just doesn't click, Nate.
Alright, so if I had to pick my absolute favorite boss fight of all time, well, you guys know me. I can't just narrow it down to one, but I guess if I had to, for the sake of this video, I'm gonna have to pick Doom Eternal's Icon of Sin. When I beat Doom Eternal on Nightmare and spent roughly 2 hours scrapping at this boss, I mean, I had to put it down the first time and come back to it again. And then after attempting him a second time, I had to put it down again. So finally, my third time playing this, I pick up my controller, I'm thinking, you know what, I got it this time. And I absolutely crushed the Icon of Sin. That reward, after fighting him so many times over and playing through all of Doom Eternal on Nightmare, I mean, that was one of the most rewarding feelings I've had in gaming to date. But, you know, I'm going to have to give a little bit of a shout out to Destiny, because when I played my first raid, the Vault of Glass, I was blown away by the teamwork that was required to beat down this boss. And just the experience of playing through a raid for the first time and seeing this humongous boss that me and 5 other mates had to take down. Wow, what a feeling that I will never forget. But guys, still, the Icon of Sin, I think, has to take it.
That'll wrap up today's episode, everybody. Thank you as always for hanging out with us. And if you wanted to be a part of the show and submit your clip to be the highlight of the week, well, you can do so by going to insidethegame.ca or hitting us up in Discord, just like our good buddy Benny7 did, as him and his brother, you know him, ITG Parker, that's right, the one and only Nate, get together for some more Elden Ring. This game is unstoppable. Until next week, everybody, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you inside the game.